He's a data-driven SuperCoach Pro. Recall stats on a whim. Like AI, he's known. Nothing's stopping him. No detail too small, no fact to ignore. No rivalry league holidays, but his tactics soar. Pistols data-driven, never missing a beat. SuperCoach sage, his memory elite. Recall scores with precision, like a machine. Pistols reign supreme, SuperCoach dream. The SuperCoach dream.
Hello, welcome to the Dr. SuperCoach podcast powered by Code Sports. You are on with Pig and Pistol. We're back for another week. We've had a few weeks off. Pistol's been overseas. I've had a bit of a break, and now we're back. Hello, Pistol.
Welcome back. I missed the big welcome, Pig. Hello. That's a funny start to the podcast, but I appreciate your take on it. How have you been? How did you go this week? How's the team tracking?
It's going pretty well. I scored a 23-13, which seems, based on other people around me, seems pretty par. I moved up 300 spots, so I guess that is quite par. I didn't really move much. I'm now ranked about 12K. I feel like this year for me has been very much like a year of almost, or like every week is a week of almosts. Like last week, I almost had a good score, but Stuart was on the bench. And the week before, I almost had a good score, but Stuart got knocked out. I feel like I'm just I'm happy with my team. It just hasn't quite clicked. And I think I'm ready for this week. I'm putting a 2,500 out there. I reckon everything's just going to click for me.
Fingers crossed for you. That's a lot of Stuart-related issues.
What about you?
Look, the 3 weeks off has done me well. I left in round 4, ranked 37K, and I'm come back and found myself in 11,000. So a big 2,404 last week with both Libra and Stuart on the bench. My team is in really good shape. My trades while I went away were definitely not conventional. So I traded in not last week, but the week before, Rankin. And then last week I traded in Bailey Dale and Jack McRae. So I really went off the deep end. Basically, I mean, look, something that people don't talk about too much being a content creator is there's a lot more pressure to perform well, and sometimes it's quite difficult to go against the herd and try and really do something out there, like getting Bailey Dale. I think it's a lot of the time when you're tossing up between two players, and that's pretty much every week you're tossing up between two players, it's much easier to go with like the safer route. And that's something, I guess, when I'm overseas, I didn't really have to contend so much with. So I didn't need to come back and justify, I guess, any decision realistically that I made. But it worked out this week, but it doesn't mean it's going to work out next week, especially if Bailey Dale gets sort of tagged going forward. But certainly getting in the cheap value premiums, kind of doing the opposite where everyone else is leaving their forwards and defender spots with their rookies and filling out their midfield. I've gone the complete opposite of pretty much going into this week. If you count Harley Reid as a premium, I'd finished both my forward and back line. So I have a really weird team. But I mean, something worked. So hopefully I can ride that, home for the next couple of weeks.
I love that. I think it's a really good point you made about how when you're creating content and putting your trades out there, they get scrutinized, or even if they don't get scrutinized, you're just thinking that you might have to justify them. We talked out off air just before that your real dream team is flying. What rank are you?
39th, and I came 4th last year and 39th this year because no one's asking, no one talks about it. I just do the trades, don't have to justify any decisions.
You do the trades based on your gut feel, and yeah, exactly. And I was saying that last year when I came 95th, like I wasn't in these circles and like had my trades necessarily looked at. So I was just making pure gut feel decisions. And I've probably gone a bit safer this year. Not safer, but probably against my gut, I guess is more it. So like I didn't want Tom Powell, like we talked about in the podcast a few weeks ago, but that's all right. But I went with the herd, and there were a few other things where like I probably wouldn't have gone early on Stewart. That one I still don't regret because I think that was the aggressive and right move. He just happened to get hurt. But yeah, there definitely is a little bit of a different, when you think people are looking at your team or your trades, even if they're not really. But maybe the takeaway is we should just back our gut. We'll just go on holidays or put our phones away and just actually back our gut. But
I think that's what I'm going to try and do now. I'm looking at my trades. I've gotten Meek, Rankin, McRae, Dale in the last 4 rounds. Like that's nuts.
Yeah.
And Nick Martin before that.
That's so good.
I've really gone off the deep end there. But I think I'm going to just try and keep up that style of play for the rest of the season and take it as a learning season. I mean, I started so poorly. And, if I can come back strong, then great. But, it's been at a cost of my boosts. Even though my team is in a really good position now, I'm going to start falling back a little bit just because I don't have the boosts, even if I've got the cash gen going, because my starting team had so many errors.
So I guess just to recap, you and I are sitting at we're within 8 points of each other on the whole season. We're sitting at about 12k, give or take a few hundred spots. For those that are following along with the Chizo chase down, I know Chizo's been into JB a little bit in the last few podcasts saying he's going to chase him down. There's only a 24-point gap now, so JB's only 24 points ahead of Chizo. Chizo just gained 100 points on him this week alone, so they're both give or take around the 3K mark, give or take a few hundred spots. So if Chizo gets JB on the chase down, I think we're all expecting another Kiss Chasey type Chizo countdown song. That was so good. But the way I see it, it's like you and I
missed all the songs.
Oh, you've got to go back and listen to them. They were great.
I know.
But
I will.
You and I at about 12k. We're kind of sitting in the peloton, I think. And JB broke away early. Chizo kind of was in the first breakaway pack to chase him down, so they're out in front now. So I reckon it's our turn now to break off the peloton and chase these two down.
Easy.
And I feel like our teams are in pretty good shapes.
Yeah. No. I'm excited about it. All right. Before we get into it, though. Let's just quickly jump into the Cancer Council. A couple of nice donations this week. First up, Sam Waddy Potty says he had a Slack bet with BD and donate for painful things. The bet was that Dawson would go under 105, and we all know what happened there. I also traded him out, so it was a brutal watch. At least the Dons clutch victory and King Draper's antics helped to relieve the pain a little. That may have been last week. Whitey donating for dumb things, wrote an essay to Pig about how I could get Sweet on field and what it would do to future trades. Very short response. I didn't have the E on Sweet. Oh, God.
That was so funny. He had all his trades planned based around the emergency on Sweet and who would trade in to get that score. And I just looked at his team and I said, you don't even have the E on Sweet. Don't even worry about it.
No, that is a disaster. Oh, poor Whitey. Thank you very much. And thanks to Zach Zamet. He said a Slack bet with Clayton. I win for Dawson to outscore track. And Sebo has donated dumb things. Pocena Los Dos had the C on Livingston. The E came off Grundy after altering a trade last minute. So that's one of those standard ones. So thank you all very much for your donations. One more, actually, from Clint Waits donated. He says, 2-3-5-1 would have been my score if I'd subbed on Graham instead of going in a huff and resigning myself to Gussie's 40 when Libba was out. Oh, dear. That's also a couple of silly mistakes costing some people some big points this year, Pig.
Yep.
And very briefly, a couple of patron sign-ups. Apologies, a patron site's not being super kind to me, so I've got the usernames. But thank you very much for signing up. Deckers, Jessica Van Oegberg, and Cheese, who I'm not 100% sure isn't Chizo, or at least a relation to Chizo. But nevertheless, thanks everybody for getting on board. We really appreciate it.
They either love the dairy product or they love the podcaster. One of the others.
Or both.
Or both. Yeah, I love both, so that's fair enough.
Alrighty. So, Pig.
All right, so if we get into it,
Let's do it.
let's talk about. I reckon let's start with kind of the trade out targets, because there were actually quite a few rookies that were planning to trade out this week that probably spike scored and have saved themselves for a few more weeks, especially kind of like the Sam Darcys and the Wilsons of the world. So those guys, I'd probably put them in the boat. You can trade them out if you like need their cash to get a premium upgrade, but
I would. Don't do that.
Also,
Wilson. Yeah,
Hold
Wilson's got North Melbourne and Hawthorn in his next two, coming off in 88.
geez.
He's in a great spot with a break even of 0. Definitely don't trade Wilson, please.
All right, so then the ones to trade out, I think there's a few we could look at.
Yep.
Aaron Cadman, Jeremy Sharp, I think we can tick those guys off. Ollie Dempsey as well. You could hold him, you could trade him. There's probably a few guys I put in this boat of either way.
Yeah.
Zach Williams is another one. Like, I think I'm trading in this week because I need his cash to get Bont or whoever I'm upgrading to. So Zach Williams could be a fine on-field option, but also he can go. Massimo D'Ambrosio, I'll put in the same boat. The thing with Mass, I would say, if he is back, is that he has Bulldogs this week, who are usually a pretty okay matchup for defenders, and then Saints next one. So Mass potentially could have a spike score, but also I believe they brought in a couple of players last week that might even, there's even some questions about where he plays.
Yeah,
so
there is. I think
you could hold Mass, you could get rid of him. Then we got Riley Sanders. I'm pretty comfortable moving him on. He did get sent back to the VFL and dominated, but like we've shown that Vevo's shown that he loves making him sub, so I'm not that keen on holding him. Zach Fisher was just sub, like he can go. Looks like they're playing around with that half back line and McKercher. They want McKercher back there, so Zach Fisher can go. Tom Berry, I think, can go. He's made 130k for us, which he'll have. Tom's been a bit annoying because he'll have a 70 or an 80, but then he'll back it up with a 30 or 40 and just make not quite as much as we thought, but kudos. He still made us 130k.
You can't just do 2 in a row. It's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. Tom Brown, I think he can go. Draper as well for Freo. We mentioned in the before we started recording, he got injured. They said a light hammy, I believe, which we don't know. Could be 1, 2, 3 weeks. Would you trade someone at Draper's price? He hasn't made much, I think
it's similar to Hall, where you just like kind of hope they come back in and play a couple more games. At the end of the day, it's a lot of the time, unless you're desperate for the money to make your other upgrade, it's usually not worth trading these guys. And just hope that they come back at a later stage. Yeah. As long as you don't have 2 of them on your bench. Like 2 in the same position, like both defenders.
Jai Clark kind of boat as well. Alex Sexton even make it. Maybe it's just worth holding those guys because they haven't made much.
Yeah.
You have Buku. He's actually made a good bit of money.
Yeah.
He could probably go if you need him.
Yep.
Charlie Comben, I've got here. I've put an asterisk next to him because I have him, and I think he's like a safer on-field option than a normal rookie. So I'm actually keen on holding Comben. Plus, he has the St Kilda matchup this week, who's the easiest matchup for defenders in the league, and just that zone and pressure they play, it forces this week. It'll force North to kind of chip it around the back line. So I actually think Comben could spike this week. And if he doesn't, then maybe I'll just get rid of him next week.
Yeah, I would hold Comben.
He is one I'll hold just because I'd... Yeah.
I think
and I'd feel more comfortable fielding him.
A lot of people don't have too many of these guys left. Like, most of these have been culled in the last couple of weeks. I have noticed with some of the top teams that realistically they only have 1 of these guys. And that makes trading quite difficult this week because, there might be 2 downgrade options, but they only have 1 potential trade out option. So that's something to keep an eye on, where you don't really want to force it. Like, you don't want to be trading out a Closey or Graham, or even like a Howes.
No, definitely not.
I mean, to be fair, Roberts probably has another 20k in him after this week, and if he doesn't have a spike score, Roberts might need to, might be on the cards to go next round. But at the moment, most people have, like the Darcy and the Gold Coast guys. Some still have Howes, Darcy Wilson. All these people are like 2+ weeks before they have to be taken out. So there's a lot of cash that you're leaving on the table if you were to cash out early. And most of the premiums that we're targeting or trading in are not going up by more than, what these guys are going to go up in the next 2 weeks. So I know it's a points versus cash sort of situation, but you've just got to be very careful that you don't hamstring yourself later in the season by culling some of these guys too early.
Yeah, so I guess that's a little question is, like, let's say someone wants to trade in Tom Green and they think he's going to go up 20k, but if they hold, I don't know, let's say it's Sam Darcy for another week and he goes up 20k, and then you make that trade next week or the week after, would you kind of do that? Because I guess they're parallel going up together. Would you just rather the points guy, or would you just try and find a different way to get to Tom Green?
It just depends how much you want specifically Tom Green. I mean, I'm in the camp that I'm buying Tom Green at 580 because he's the best value player at 580. It's not because his name is Tom Green, because of him specifically. If Sarong was 580, I'd be getting Sarong, but he's not. So I might then just wait a week and get Anderson, who will be probably 580 next week instead, who is having an absolute monster year instead. I mean, Tom Green's outscoring him, so maybe it's not like an apples for apples comparison, but, Petrarca will be 560. And if I'm choosing between a 560 Petrarca or a 580 or 600k Green, I'm probably still getting Petrarca.
All right, so you wouldn't necessarily force a Sam Darcy trade out to get Tom Green when you think there might be similar value next week or the week after.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't really want to lose my upgrade cadence. So it just depends on your other trades and your downgrade options. I think most people, if you have a boost available, unfortunately I don't, but if you did, I think this is a good round to boost because there is multiple downgrade options available that seem quite good.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have enough cash to go up from somebody as well. So there's plenty of different ways to play this week. It's quite an exciting round.
Yeah, certainly. And I guess that when we talk about, most of the people have got rid of these rookies, there's only maybe one left that people have. Maybe that's why some of these other players are getting force traded a little bit. So there's a few here. There's some people talked about, like, I've got Sam Naismith at R3. Do I trade him to get Jordan Sweet because Jordan Sweet is like the rookie to have this week?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I think like Sweet is a must get. I mean, he's going to have 4 weeks at R1. He's just put out a 136. I mean, I don't know if he can, average 100, but I think he's got a good shot of going 90 plus. And if he does that, he's probably going to make you 250k at least in 4 weeks. And if he can hold his spot for longer, he might get up into the 400s by his bye. And that is an incredible result in a couple of weeks to be able to get that cash injection straight onto your field. I mean, you could almost at that time do like Sweet to like Shai Bolton or something, and you're cooking.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on Sweet, I think I agree. I think he's the best trade-in option this week. I will say that he probably just had his easiest matchup of the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Against Rowan Marshall and an injury impacted Rowan Marshall. He does have kind of 2 hard and 2 medium matchups to come, so I'm not expecting 136s, but like we said, if we can get 85s even, I think that's awesome. And he's the number one. People looking at getting rid of Tom Powell. How do you see that?
Tom Powell's a really interesting one because it came out of nowhere. Basically, I mean, look, when I say came out of nowhere, we saw Phillips had impacted him in the preseason, and that was like kind of a worry. But then it seemingly was a 1-2 punch with Simpkin getting a majority of CBAs alongside Phillips, and Powell I think he had one CBA to halftime, and until Phillips went off, I think he only had one other one. So he was tracking for, sub 10% CBAs, which going from one of the leading CBA mids in the team to under 10% in one team is a total blindside. Realistically, it's hard to tell people what to do without knowing the teams this week, because like if Phillips was dropped and maybe they bring in forward and they bring in some forwards because Powell had to go forward, he might be okay this week, and it's not a bad matchup either. But that being said, you'd be willing to drop a lot of money by holding him that extra week. And if you're in a situation where you have no rookies available to trade out, as we just talked about earlier, and you can get him to somebody like Tom Green, then that feels very good.
Yeah, I agree. I think like Tom Powell being a top 6 forward, I'm no longer confident to say that's even likely necessarily. He would have to get that role back, absolutely. And even in that role the last 2 weeks before this one, he wasn't scoring that well. So I think you could throw him out. The thing with him is, let's say you trade him out and you're using that money to get Green, who are you putting on field for him in the forward line? Like if you have to field one of the Garcias in his place in the forward line, like I really don't like that, because you could be getting a 30 or a 40. If you like bringing Harley Reid down or even Darcy Wilson to play on his F4 spot, that I'm okay with. Yeah. But yeah, just have a think about who will going on field in his place, because not all rookies are built the same as well.
No, fortunately for the Saints boys, North Melbourne into Hawks probably gets you away with it for 2 weeks and then you can fix it up. So I'm not that distressed playing either Wilson or Garcia, purely just because the opponent is really good for them, assuming, they avoid the sub-vest. So I don't think too many have neither, so they should be okay. Hopefully.
Cool.
No guarantees.
Brodie Grundy. People are trading out Brodie Grundy after an 83 against Meek. I think that's fair enough. Grundy's doing the Tom Berry. He's having a giant score and then a crap score to kill his gen, and then a big one and then a crap one. And I've gone through and done my captain research already this week, and like a little spoiler, Brodie Grundy is in it. I think he's going to actually have a huge game. At the SCG, he actually averages... I should have had it on me. I think he averages over 130 at the SCG this year versus 90 at other grounds. So the discrepancy is huge. Plus he plays Kieran Briggs, who's been the easiest matchup for Ruckman this week. So I think this is going to be a giant Grundy score. But Tim English is sitting there with a price of $5.91, a break even of 90. I think this is like a pretty easy pivot, because Tim English is going up. Tim English is playing Meek this week. And I think he's going to score really well as well. So I'm pretty happy trading Grundy out if anyone had him, but just don't be surprised when you check the score and see that he had a 130 and you go, oh, damn it. But he could have a poor one again the next game and not really even rise. So that's my thought. People could hold Grundy.
Yeah. Isn't a priority?
Even through to his bye, that's fine. But
I mean...
No, it's not, but it is a lot of people's way to English, I guess, is why he's getting traded.
I'm just looking at the break-evens. English break-even is 90, and Grundy's is 78. I mean, maybe English goes up a little bit more, but realistically, you could pull that trigger next week and pay minimally more.
You could, certainly, yeah.
I do think, though, some people are probably going to be eyeing off the Grundy to Sweet trade. How do you feel about that if it leaves you with running Sweet at R2?
Yeah, I'm fine with Sweet at R2, actually.
You're sweet with it?
I think he's a safe 85. I'm sweet with Sweet. Fully sweet. And the main reason, like, he's a rookie price. If running Sweet at R2 gets you 85s, that's better than nearly any other rookie in any other line. And you can be using that trade to go up and get someone else. So... it looks a bit funny, like having a rookie at R2, but yeah, Sweet I'm actually quite okay with. What about you?
Yeah, look, I understand that in terms of like points per game and getting like the maximum amount of points on field, Sweet at R2 is the best play because you take off a worse rookie from your field and you're able to get, a high scoring rookie like Sweet on your field plus the premium that you bring in. So I totally understand that it's a high scoring play. However, you have nowhere to go if something happens to Sweet, right? Like if he cops an injury or a knock or anything
true.
like that, you're now 500k from English that you need to make that week. And if you're like me and you don't have boosts, that's almost impossible to be able to do. So it just feels like that's a boom or bust. That's the high risk, high reward play right there. If you have Jackson as cover, it's not too bad.
Yeah, if you have Jackson in the forward line and could just swing him up there, that's better. Yeah, to be fair, I didn't think about that. What if Sweet gets injured? And we probably should plan for the contingencies, especially when there's no emergency on that line. It is kind of not even a Hail Mary. I think it's still got a lot of merit, but there is that risk. Then the other one that people were like, when Sweet got that 136 on the weekend, we were getting so many messages in Slack just saying like, which ruckman am I trading out to get his score or to get him on field last week? Like people were even saying, should I trade out English? Should I trade out? I don't think anyone really said Gorn, but Grundy and Meek definitely got mentioned. And so with those with Meek at R2, a lot of them were talking about trading out Meek to kind of field Sweet next week. And Meek, I don't think should be a trade out. Chizo and I, a couple of weeks ago when it was the week to trade Meek in, I went through his run, and so he's had 3 games with these price cycles going up, and they were his 3 hardest matchups of the next few weeks. So, like he's had, I think from memory off the top of my head, it was something like Witts, Cherry, and now Grundy. They're all quite difficult hit out ruckman to win a hit out against, and Meek does get quite a bit of his points from that. So he's just had his 3 hard matchups, still averaged about 100 against all those guys, and now I think 4 of his next 5 matchups are really, really easy. So this is kind of the time I was flagging. I said Meek just needs to get through these 3 hard weeks, and then he'll make a lot of money between now and his bye. So I'm saying please hold Lloyd Meek. I think he's still got like 70 to 100k to make before his bye. And actually, now that you just mentioned Grundy's break even, and I've just mentioned that I think Grundy's a captain option. Yeah, Grundy also could make a bit of money this week. So do you reckon we're saying hold both Grundy and Meek, or would you trade them if English is on the bye?
I think Grundy you can trade because I just don't trust him, even though his home form has been incredibly good. I just don't think it's like a priority that you like. There's some moves that you need to make like this week because of shifting break evens. And that's just like not a move that you are desperate to do, but it is desperate to get Sweet. So if it's the only way realistically that gets you Sweet, or the easiest way that gets you Sweet, then sure, go for it. I think trading Meek now is madness. Watching him the last 3 weeks, like one, he has gotten pretty lucky with some of these goals that he's been almost gifted. Grundy gave away a 50 and Meek was a recipient and was able to put it away 30 in front. The previous week, he got a free kick goal, and then he got a lucky goal where he was just bombing it into the forward line, and it went over everyone's heads and just like rolled through. And he kicked 2. Like his confidence is really high right now, so he's playing good footy, and he's not winning that many hit outs. Like he's probably not, as you said before, as a high hit out winning ruckman, and we haven't even been able to see that. He's getting a lot of points from these goals and impacting the game and possessions and stuff. So given his form is really good and his opponents have been strong, I think it's just a long hold. And I know English might get back up into the 600s, but Mick's going to make as much money, and you never really know what's happening. I mean, if Marshall has a couple of weeks off, I don't know if he will or won't. I mean, he's running around on one leg at the moment. You could almost downgrade Mick to Marshall at some stage. So there's plenty of different options available for Meek owners, but I think let's take advantage of the easier fixtures, as you said, 4 over the next 5, and hopefully we can make another 100k out of Meek.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's a few ruckmen here discussing. Luke Jackson and Rowan Marshall have both been underwhelming the last few. Like Luke Jackson, the last two when Sean Darcy's come back. Rowan Marshall's had a couple of bad ones and is now injured. We haven't heard any news. Like he played out the game, but we haven't really heard what's going to happen with him. What do you think owners should be doing with Luke Jackson and Rowan Marshall?
I'd trade Marshall because he was limping around on one leg. His break even is 198. So he's probably going to drop 50k at least this week. And I think they might bring in some help because he's been beaten physically.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that's probably a trade. And he wasn't going to outscore English. So at the end of the day, while his 545k, which is still decent value, it sucks because I'm sure people just trade him in, but I think he's a trade out. He's the walking wound at the moment. Even if you go down the suite, it might make you feel a little bit better because that's that high risk play that might get you someone. So I'm pretty confident in that one. Jackson is a bit more tricky. The issue is he just lost another 30k. His break even's 120. He's 500,000. So he still maintains, decent value. But really with almost no ruck time to Darcy, it's just not good for his scoring potential. And you're now, you paid 547k. People didn't really cash out when he got to 600. Now he's going to be 500 and next week probably like 470, 480. And you've really just paying for what you got last year, which was an 87 average forward. I think 87 is probably enough to have at your F6 and to be able to cover your forwards, your ruck line throughout the season. So I'm actually okay with people just holding for the rest of the year. However, if you're in a situation where you don't have any of those trade outs available because of the reasons we've spoken about earlier in the podcast, I think he's a viable trade out option this week if that's your way to keep your cows fattening.
Yeah, my issue with trading out Jackson is kind of who do you go to, and a little bit like Tom Power, who do you put in his spot to be a reliable on-field forward? And if you are trading out, say, Jackson and Powell, like how are you covering both of their spots with rookies? But yeah, geez, he is leaking cash, and I think I saw a stat. It's back to a 75%, 25% split. Sean Darcy's way in the ruck. That's probably going to continue. Might even get worse as Sean Darcy gets his fitness back. So I don't think Jackson's getting much ruck time. So yeah, it's a tough one. I probably would hold because I still don't. At the moment, I've probably still got him as a top 8 forward, even playing mainly forward. It just sucks that he's going to hemorrhage cash for a while.
I mean, if you are keeping him, right, it doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter what he drops to. If you're not selling him, who cares?
And he is good ruck cover if one of the big dogs goes down as well. Especially once you get, once Sweet's made his money and maybe Livingston's back in your R3 and you've got that swing back. I still kind of like that.
I honestly would. I mean, if he were to get to low 400s, I would consider trading him in. Like he's an option.
Yeah, I agree. He's on my trade-in watch list for sure. And yeah, I do agree with Ryan Marshall. He's banged up, he's injured. I do think they maybe bring someone in. I hope it's Hayes, actually. I really want to see Hayes get another go at AFL. And right now, as it stands, it's less than 50k from Marshall up to English, which you could probably make happen pretty easily. Or, like we said, then you could do the Meek move because I think he's still got money to make, or the Sweet move. So, I would also be happy to move off Marshall. And then the last kind of trade out, which is still unknown because we haven't got the injury report, is Connor Rozee. They're saying a light hammy.
What's light hammy mean? What does it even mean?
I don't know. They're saying, maybe he could even play this week. Or actually, maybe it's 2. Or maybe it's 1. I think injury reports usually come out Tuesday. We might know more then. I'm a Connor Rozee owner, and at this stage I actually am trading. I picked him kind of hoping he could be my M8 and average around 112, and he's not doing badly. He was on track for a good one on this one.
Big score.
But when I see his price is still okay, and he's actually quite within reach of getting me to Caleb Sarong, who I think is probably a top 2 or 3 mid, that really, really tempts me. Mainly because I don't think Rozee is a top 10 mid, and I'm pretty confident that Sarong absolutely is. And I'm not sure, like, if I don't do it now, I'll probably have to wait, 4 weeks or something to get Sarong, whereas I could get him now. So that is tempting me. And it doesn't affect, it's a sideways, but it doesn't affect my upgrade cadence because my other 2 trades, I'm getting in Bont. So I'm looking at bringing in Bont and Sarong and old mate Tom Stewart off my bench. So 3 premiums essentially coming in this week. But what do you think about the Rozee trade out? Would it depend if it's 0, 1 or 2 weeks for you?
Yeah, I think I would hold and upgrade around him just to maintain the cadence. I think if you miss 2 weeks, that's probably my limit. But if it was any more than 2, I'd trade. But if he's missing 2 weeks, he's coming back into Hawthorn, North Melbourne in back-to-back weeks. Plus, he's got the really good bye. He was on track for a good score as well against Saints. Realistically, if he doesn't get injured and he plays out that game, that was a 110 plus score that's gone missing. And he's only had 1 bad game against Collingwood at the G, which was a 65. I still think he's got that 110 upside. It's just a shame he got injured. And I can see the appeal to trade him to Sarong. And I actually do think Sarong's on another level this year. So I do understand that. He's averaging 128 and his 620s. Probably one of the cheaper prices you're going to get Sarong this year. So that kind of makes sense to me. But I've seen some people try and trade him to like Tom Green. And I don't know if I love it, to be honest. There's no... Yeah.
Interesting.
I think if you're getting one of the big boys, that feels a little bit better than me to Tom Green, where, they could be averaging not similarly, but I just don't think Tom Green's he's averaging 120, but I just don't think he's a 120 guy at the end of the season. I think we'll be looking back on him and he's beaten up all the bad teams or the teams that are out of form this season, coupled with some 70s and 80s. I think he's probably in a 2-3 point radius of where Rozee ends up on average.
I probably disagree with that quite a bit. I think Tom Green is a 120 guy, and I've actually got him. I've tried to project out the top 10 mids, and I've actually got Tom Green at number 3, averaging 120, ahead of Butters and Merritt and Rao, which might be a very big call.
Seems
but
like a big call
I think he. Well, he's averaging 120 now, and I think he's going to elevate it. I've got Bont and Sarong ahead of him, although Bont has looked a bit shaky lately, but I think he's going to bounce back. So yeah, I guess our discussion isn't whether Tom Green's a top leveler or not. It's if you're trading out Rozee to get to who you consider as an Uber premium, maybe is okay, but you wouldn't do it to go kind of sideways to a Dawson or a Steele or a Petrarca who's kind of off the level a bit.
No, I wouldn't. I'm surprised you have Green at number 3. I mean, he's already played North and West Coast and doesn't play them again.
He's just so good.
I mean, when we were talking about him last week, coming off a 72 and an 82 and averaging 114, it's one week paints a big story, but people were off Tom Green last week, so...
I wasn't. I think I actually had him at M2 last week. So I think Sarong...
He's gone down.
Sarong's jumped him just because I've watched Sarong closely recently, but I'm still super confident in Green. I haven't been cool on him, and I'm an owner, and I lived through those 2 bad scores and thought, well, that's probably his worst 2 scores.
I'm actually terrified. The one player that I wish I had that I don't have is actually Butters. I'm really scared not to have Butters because he's got that 170 upside that most players don't have, and He's already dropped one on me, and that's killed my rank. And I'm like, it's not if it's going to happen again. It's just like, at what match? Yeah.
When
is he dropping this on me? And do I need to cover this off quicker? And he's got the good buy, so he's right at the top of my shopping list in the next couple of weeks.
Well, I've got him at M4 if that helps.
It does. I do feel a bit better about this list now.
Yeah, so smart plays obviously to wait to hear the Rosie timeline. If it is just the one, I probably will hold, to be honest. If it's two, I'm very happy trading, especially with 40 trades. I've been a bit more conservative than you. I think I've still got 3 boosts and a few more trades than you burnt through. So
you mean you haven't burnt through maximum trades every week?
No, I haven't at all. And that's probably why I haven't climbed that rank in a few weeks. But the way I viewed these 4 extra trades when we got to 40 was actually like not to be risky and not to be silly. It was actually just the way I took them was any 2-week injuries gone and traded for someone else, rather than we used to do it like 3 or 4 week injuries gone as a sideways. So that's kind of where I'm using my 4. So if Rosie's a 2, he's probably gone for me. If he's a 1, he might be a hold. I wish he played later so we could like loop him with 2 rookies, but we can't do that because he plays the first game.
I had that liver problem last week.
Yeah, so the 1.5 weeks out is probably my line for whether I hold or...
Fair enough.
But I'm only doing that because I had a big enough war chest that I can still upgrade with my other 2. If it was just a plain sideways and it was stopping me upgrading this week, I would not do that. You still need to be upgrading this week, I think.
I feel like I'm going to do a very high-level explanation of why the cadence is important, just because we say...
Yeah, give us a cadence chat.
We mention it every year, but for those tuning in for the first time, why it's so important to not fall behind in your upgrade season cycle. So essentially, if you were to, upgrade around Rosie, so you keep going your 1-ups, 1-downs, trading the premium, essentially for the 1 week, next week, you might be a premium behind because Rosie didn't play, but then you've still... when he comes back after a week, you're still going your 1-ups, 1-down, and, in 2 weeks' time, you have 2 additional premiums and Rosie. Whereas if you were to sideways him and stop upgrading, you average out with the person that's going the 1-up, 1-down after the next week. And then once Rosie's back, you're a premium behind. And then they're gaining points on you all the way until you fully upgrade your team. So the risk of falling behind in the cadence is massive because you only really catch up at the end when everyone's got full premium teams, and then hopefully you've got better premiums than other people, and you can score more throughout the rest of the season. But sometimes that gap just becomes so big. I mean, I've seen a team actually that's got 12 of the best premiums you can imagine. But the problem is they've got 12 premiums, and I'm looking at other teams that have like 15. And I'm just looking at these teams and I'm like, sure, if it's round 21, this team with 12 premiums is going to outscore this team with 15 premiums. But for the next 8 weeks, plus the previous 5, this team with 15 premiums is going to outscore them. That's a lot of the season that they're just getting pummeled weekly. And it also means, you're playing rookies, for longer. And sometimes the best rookies are at the beginning of the season because that's why they played round 1. Not always. Yeah. We just saw, Closey's coming with an absolute bang, and Graham of Gold Coast as well looks really, really, really good. But a lot of the times the high scoring rookies start in round 1, and the rookies that we trade in now, like the Garcias of the world, are not typically like guys that we want to play on field or comfortable playing on field. So when you fall behind on the cadence and you're playing extra rookies and you have to play these guys, it just compounds into worse scores and makes you play catch up for half the season. So yeah, it's important to keep your upgrading cycles, just continuing every week.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, you should be aiming to make and to bring in a new premium every single week, if possible. Sometimes it's not possible, especially when you run out of boosts and, you don't have two juicy rookies. But if possible, that's the way that we try and do it. So we talked a fair bit about guys we're trading out. So let's have a chat about guys to trade in terms of, we'll start with cash cows.
Yeah. What's your order of cash cows? Like, which ones do you think are the most important to bring in order this week?
Yeah, and I think the order is important because some people have no boosts like yourself, so they've only got 2 trades, and if you're doing one up, you can probably only go one down and get only one of these. Some people will be able to get 2 of them. We'll talk a bit later about whether you actually go triple downgrade and get 3 of them. Actually, we could touch on it now. I don't think you should, because then you're not getting an upgrade this week. So I'd be happy to go 2 rookies. Like if you're boosting, go down for 2 and up for 1. But I wouldn't triple down this week because you want to keep your upgrade cadence going and get someone in. Plus, there's also some good guys coming through next week, some cash cows. So your thoughts on a triple downgrade before we go into
I wouldn't do it. I don't think the rookies are they're good, but it's not triple downgrade good.
No, they're not game changers. Well, one of them is.
Jordan
Sweet is.
Absolutely.
Jordan Sweet's my number one trade in. An insane break even was, I think, negative 114 or something off the top of my head. Yeah, get Sweet. He, like I said, he's not going to, I don't think he's going to put out 136 ever again because that was against a wounded Marshall, but he's still going to get 85s. He's going to make us, I actually think that he's going to make us 100K this week alone, and then more after. Potentially 3 or 4 more weeks with no soldo. So, yeah, just ride this cash cow. Kieran Briggs of last year, except with a limited time frame. Number 2, I've got Jake Rogers, and that's mainly because of this big spike score he's had. He's had it at the... It's nice when they have it on their second game as opposed to their first, so it doesn't go out there rolling as quick. Don't expect this kind of score from Jake Rogers again. He's being made to play like forward pocket or half forward flank. It's not the most like lucrative role, but like he's a bit of a talent. They drafted him. I think he's actually an inside midfielder, kind of being made to play that forward role. So he does have potential. Dimmer was wrapped. He was all over him this week, talking about how great he was. So I don't think there's any worry of Jake Rogers getting dropped. He's got this 95 in his cycle, good break even. He got a 28 first week. That's probably not. He's probably better than that, but he's definitely not 95. He's probably somewhere in between. I've then got, if named, this one hinges on if being named, I've probably got Kane McAuliffe just ahead of Riley Garcia. Okay. I think they're pretty interchangeable, to be honest. And it's only if named. And with Hopper out, McAuliffe might get a call up. I have seen Tigers fans saying, no, it's Sonsi coming in instead of McAuliffe, so we'll just wait and see. I think McAuliffe, if not subbed as well, does have some pretty good scoring potential. Like he's a bit of an inside accumulator guy. So I like him. Riley Garcia is another option. I am worried that Bevo said that he would have been the sub if Liver was playing. He came out and said Garcia would have been sub. So that does scare me. Cody Waitman's injury, though, probably helps Garcia because he has been playing that more forward role and he might kind of just get some game time doing that role. So yeah, Garcia's probably an option. I'm avoiding personally just with the Bevo-ness. I do think he is one that I personally could miss and it could bite me. I didn't get Sam Darcy because of the Bevo factor, and that's been a big regret.
Ouch.
Yeah, Garcia could be the same thing. Not as good a scoring as Darcy, no way, but he could make 150K and I miss him, but I'm bringing in Rogers, and then, as I said, I'm double upgrading with Bont and Sarong, so I don't really need to look at McAuliffe or Garcia, I think. But, I already have McAuliffe. I don't need to look at Garcia, but so they're my 4 probably that I'd be most keen on. What do you think about Rogers, Sweet, McAuliffe, Garcia, that order, or would you mix it up slightly?
I think everyone needs to bring in Sweet. I think it's a non-negotiable this week. I also have Rogers at number 2. And there's a couple of factors in that one. One, I'm valuing job security more than anything else. He played 102 minutes against West Coast, 93 the week before. So it's not like he's getting limited time on ground like some of these rookies.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
So that's really good. And yeah, talented junior. He was going to play round 1 before he got injured. So they're going to back him in. Brisbane this week is not the toughest opponent, and then he is North Melbourne. So he should be able to get, hopefully, a second spike for owners. I'm a bit annoyed I have to miss out on him this week because I didn't have a boost. But yeah, if I was boosting, I'd be bringing in Rogers and Sweet, I think, as my 1 and 2 punch. I disagree with McAuliffe at 3, but it's very minor since most people are probably getting Sweet and Rogers. I do think Garcia has good money-making potential. Hawthorn and Richmond in the next 2. I know he was going to be sub, but yeah, with that injury to Waitman, that might buy him some time. It might not, but it's good fixtures otherwise. But yeah, that's why he's comfortably number 3 and why I don't think I would be doing a triple downgrade on somebody that I'm not super sure on and that could have been the sub or would have been the sub for sure. And then McAuliffe, just job security stuff. I mean, I also went early on him in the previous week to fund some of my moves, but I actually didn't even need to fund some of my moves. It was just to get McKercher out. So that was probably a miss. Yeah, in hindsight. But it is what it is. Yeah.
All right, cool. And then we'll go on. Then I've got a big gap, I guess, between the next one. So those 4 I'm more keen on, with Sweet being far and away the best. I then think we've got a few guys who you could look at, but just don't really think you need to, or they've got big question marks. Tajwai Woden was actually really good this week. He escaped the vest and did good things with it, but he's been the vest for nearly every single other of the Melbourne games, so that's a big question mark. Sam Naismith, he's on the bubble now. Great score in round 0 and then a pretty bad score this week. I don't think you need to even look at him with Jordan Sweet in the equation. James Tunstall, like another big sub-risk. Lee Collier, he's actually done okay in 2 games for GWS, but I'm worried he's kind of just warming Sam Taylor's spot until Sam Taylor's back. So I actually don't know when Sam Taylor's back, how long that head knock was. But so I know there's some people saying, I did get a DM saying, can I get Lee Collier? I really need a defender rookie. I wouldn't. I would try and use DPP and get
Who
Roberts
needs a defender rookie?
Dacos or
How's
Martin.
that possible? There's so many DPPs.
Surely there's... Yeah, put Comden or Roberts or someone or Graham or Closey.
So
put
many.
someone else back there. Don't go for Lee Collier because I do think he could be out when Sam Taylor's back.
That person that
Toby
messaged
Conway.
you doesn't know that you can swing back Closey or Graham or Roberts by pressing the little... You can trade out your defender and then you press a little S that hovers over Roberts, Closey and Graham and swings them into the back line. They don't know that if they're asking that question.
Well,
now they do.
Now they
there
do.
We go. You're welcome.
All right. I mean, Toby Conway's on the bubble, but when's he going to play again? He'll probably play in the next few weeks, but you've got much better Ruck rookies. Sweet man. Would you trade back in Colby McKercher? I think he's, off the top of my head, he's about 250k. He's got a break even in the single figures. He's got that lucrative halfback role, just scored a ton. I think he's actually got a fair bit of money to make still, but would you be buying someone at 250k when we're in upgrade season?
So that's my biggest issue. It's not that I don't think he's going to make money because he's got another 100k at least in him. He took 12 kickouts, which is just nuts. And he plays Saints this week. So I would think if they move Sheasel up the ground like they've been talking about, and he plays the Saints, everything's aligning for him to do another ton this round and reset his, massively reset his break even. I think, he's got another 100k in him for sure. I might like him more than Garcia. I think he's probably my number 3. But again, it stops you from having your upgrade cadence. It's not worth it. Like, it's just not worth it. So, I mean, look, you could probably play him on field, but realistically, it's likely to stop you from your upgrade cadence, so it's not worth it. But if it doesn't, then maybe that's fine. Also, as a side note, it looks like maybe it's just my SuperCoach website, but it's just updated to a whole new layout mid-podcast. So that's definitely fun to try and navigate through for the first time while talking to you.
Okay.
Yeah, live. It's all different. It's all changed up on me right now, which is gonna take some time to get used to.
I'm not gonna check and risk my internet just cutting out. But and then next week's Bubble Boys, kind of one of the reasons I'm saying, like, you get 2 of these rookies, you don't need a triple down, go for 3, because there's 6 players that looked okay this week for their first game. I don't think there'll be 6 players that also play this well and look good again and are ready to buy next week. There might just be 1 or 2. But Darcy Jones was really good for GWS. I'm just worried when Toby Green and Brent Daniels come back in that he is out, but he was incredible.
Harvey Thomas has played and whole season.
Yeah, and you and I were so hot on him in the preseason and we didn't do it, and Chizo did it, and now he's loving it.
But, I mean...
he must have listened to our preseason podcast.
Or just got forced into it because he was the cheapest playing rookie. But
yeah, true.
I think, it's Harvey Thomas or Darcy Jones. So let's see what happens. It will be decided probably this week. Like, whoever plays worse.
Darcy Jones has been talked up for about a year by GWS. Like, they've been really...
I can see why.
And
he's
even
so
on
good.
socials, he is. Even on social media this week, they put out a video where David King was in the in his office on the computer typing with the headgear on, and like saying that Darcy Jones is his new favourite player. So usually when a team's going hard on social media about a guy, like it's hard for them to drop him, but we'll see. We'll know this time.
I was actually kind of hoping they'd sub on Brent Daniels so he could drop in price, because he wouldn't be the worst F7 option. He has some nice consistency in some nice games, but not to be. They didn't use their sub for the whole game, which is a rarity.
No, I think they just wanted to use him as a sub, so he got match payment. Daniel Turner, I don't think he's going to be an option, but he looked nice. He kicked quite a few goals for that score, but Elevate, I think he's like 190k or something.
I mean, if he puts out back-to-back tons, that'll be a different story, yeah.
We could look. So, yeah, keep an eye, but I'm not confident. Cooper Simpson, really like this guy. He came on as a sub and he came on really early as a sub because of an injury, that hammy that we talked about before to Draper. But he was incredibly impactful. He was so fast. He was really aggressive. Like, he just split the game open. And he's another one that was really talked up by Fremantle in the preseason. There were some Freo fans hoping he would debut round 1. Wasn't quite ready, but like, he looks legit.
If I'm Freo, I'm playing him every week now.
Yeah, he's probably going to be my number 1, like, that I'll look at next week. But we'll get more data. We'll wait and see. He was just brilliant. Sam Day is an option. I didn't actually watch this game. I was listening on the radio call, but I didn't hear him really mentioned. So, you got any information on Sam Day?
Yeah, I mean, it's Sam Day of old, I guess, or of young. Well, definitely old. He just played forward. He took some clunks, and he was a backup ruck, which was quite helpful. That's nice. Yeah, I think how many hitouts did he have? He had 17 hitouts, so he won a lot of the hitouts. Although that might say a bit more about West Coast's backup ruck. I don't think West Coast won. I'm looking at the ruck hitouts, and Witts had 46, and Day had 17, and then Williams had 15, and that's all she wrote. So I wouldn't get massively ahead of ourselves on Day, but if he put out another... Well, you know what? I'm saying that, but now I'm thinking if Big O doesn't return, they might have back-to-back easier games.
He might have a day out.
Oh, that was not too bad. I quite like that. You know what? I think it's
so here's a wait and see.
We know we've spoken about how great the Gold Coast draw is. His bubble game would be against North Melbourne. There's worse things. Let's discuss it next week.
Yep. Cool. Patrick Voss could be there,
not.
although he's kind of a key forward. He's a very mobile key forward, but they do have some players to come back in. I don't think we'll be picking him. Riley Hardiman actually looked really good in the first quarter for North, playing like a half-back role. He went for some ambitious kicks and like even turned one over for a goal against, which hurt his score. He didn't really do much after the first quarter, really, but for a first game, I was actually quite impressed with his attack. So he could be an option.
Yeah.
Wait and see. Yep. So, yeah, there we go. We're going through the rookies to trade in, like get Jordan Sweet. Second option, Jake Rogers. Don't triple downgrade, do an upgrade. And then these are the guys I want to talk about to trade in, I guess. So, yeah, everyone should be getting Sweet. People with a boost probably should be getting Rogers. If you don't have a boost, you probably pass on Rogers and then you get one of these primo trade-ins.
Yeah, this is a boost week. I don't care if you have one boost left.
Yeah.
Just like the boosts are meant to be used to help maintain your upgrade cadence. I think that's the best way to use it. If you have the players to trade out, go for it.
Absolutely. So who you should be targeting? This is going to be my ranking anyway, and you might disagree with number one because you just talked that you're not as big on him. But I think Tom Green should be absolutely the number one trade-in target this week.
He's my number one trade-in target too.
Oh, sweet. He's 579k. He's got a break-even of 91. Pig projects him to go 120 for the rest of the year. Pistol doesn't quite. But whatever he does, even if it's kind of 115 or whatever Pistol thinks, it's still great value. Like one of the best midfielders in the game, and you're getting him for 579. He plays Sydney this week. I'm not sure whether that'll suit him or probably not, but at the SCG, maybe not stoppages. I don't think it
Battle
really
of the
matters.
Bridge.
You're getting Tom Green for 7. Yeah, you're getting Tom Green for under 580k. So he is my number one. My number two then is, and this is more based on price and break even, but my number two is Tim English. 591k, a break even of 90. This one's more team dependent. Like Tom Green, I'm saying everyone go get Tom Green. Tim English, I'm not necessarily saying that because you might have Meek, who still is money to make. You might have done a move last week that puts Sweet at R2 or something. The ruck line isn't as important to be like, I think there's still money making options at that R2, R3 that you don't need to get English. But if you're kind of, especially like on a Rowan Marshall kind of rocket to earth, just pivoting to English is going to be such a nice luxury. So I'm really big on English, and he's got a really nice run coming up. I was speaking in my captain video this week about how he's just had a really tough run and he's got through it still pretty well, and he's got some great matchups coming up. So I think he's rocketing back up in price very quickly. So I really like him. Number 3, I've got Nick Dacos. If you don't own Nick Dacos, last week was a really good week to get him. I recommended him, but like he's still under 600k. He's got a break even of 78. I've got him going as the number one defender for the rest of the year. Yeah, I just think if you don't have Nick Dacos, prime time to get him. Any thoughts on those?
No, I think all of those are really good choices. The only one, and I know he's going to come in your list a bit later, but I think for me, I might have Caleb Sarong a bit higher. I just think that he's on an absolute another level this year, and 620k, which is only $600 less than his starting price. This is a really nice time to be able to get him, and he's got the good buy as well. There's just a lot of pros. I maybe even battling with Tom. I actually might put him number one trade-in target if you don't own him this week.
There you go. So for everyone else's idea, I had Caleb Sarong at number 5 trade-in. 621k, break even 98. I do think this is probably the cheapest we're going to get in for a while. Although there has been some flags coming out that maybe, he gets tagged this week by Marlon Pickett, who did a job on Petrarca last week. He then has Sydney and Saints in his next two who have tagged this year. So there is like a slight worry that Caleb Sarong could get 3 weeks of tags. Whether that happens or not, I don't really know. It's really hard. It's really hard to predict tags this year.
Could go to 5 for all we know.
And you and Cheezo, I think it was last year, talked about how much we overrate tags, and they don't even do that much because Carlton actually tried to tag Sarong earlier in the match, or earlier in the year, and he actually just went out to a wing and racked up still on a wing, and it didn't work. So I'm buying Sarong. I do have a few reservations that actually he might be cheaper soon, but I'm just going to lock away who actually I think is one of the best midfielders this year. We did skip over my number 4, who is Bont. I think actually this is the cheapest we're going to get Bont for quite a while. 614k. His break-even's 124. That doesn't look... It looks like, maybe you could wait. And you probably could wait. But he has Hawthorn this week. Like, he's actually my number 1 captain option. He could be like 140, 150 this week, and I would not be shocked. He then has Richmond the following week, so I could see Bont putting out 2 giant scores and getting back up to like 670 really quick. So that's kind of why I'm saying getting him this week. You could wait for next week as well. Then I've actually got Jack McRae at number 6. This one might be a little bit controversial because of his 79 on the weekend. But when we actually break that down, he had a 4-point first quarter, which was abysmal. I think it was a 14 dream team or something. So it was just like doing stupid, bad SuperCoach things. But if you take that out, his next 3 quarters were 75. So he averaged 25 for the next 3 quarters. So that's really good. And he has Hawthorn this week. I was just listening to the Traders podcast. I think Calvin said there were 7 players that had 9 marks or more for Sydney against Hawthorn last week. So Hawthorn are just giving up this huge amount of marks around the ground. And like that's kind of what Jack McRae can do. So, and Jack McRae had the 2nd most marks for Bulldogs last week. So I'm actually really predicting like a Jack McRae ton this week, and then he's kind of starting to get away in price. You don't have to buy him. It's only for the believers, I guess. If you believe he's a top 6 forward, I think it's a great time to buy Jack McRae. I personally do think Jack McRae is a top 6 forward, so I actually bought him last week, and I would recommend people buying him this week, but that one's a gut feel kind of thing. You only do that if you want him in your team and you believe in him. You bought Jack McRae last week. Are you okay with your purchase?
I think jury's still out.
Yeah.
I have minor regrets, purely because I went to look through my buys today, and
I have not done
Rankin
that.
shares the same buy as McRae. Obviously Dale, and I have Libba, and I have Bont, and I'm going to get English. I might end up with 5 Bulldogs in my side, which is not great for buys, and then 2 Crows is already up to 7 out on the same buy. Not ideal. And Bolton, who people are eyeing off as a top 6 forward, also has around 15 buy. And I think if I'm choosing now, if I'm looking at my team and I'm thinking which one do I want out of Rankin, McRae, and Bolton, I'm probably taking Bolton at 1, and then I'm not 100% sure after that. So yeah, it's a tough one. I don't think you'd be desperate to get McRae in. Let's put it that way. And I should say, sorry for the whole Traders Calvin thing. I mean, Swans are a significantly better team than Hawthorn. And
100%.
As much as they did take a lot of marks and they did do what they please, I think that's just because Swans are a well-trained unit. It doesn't... I mean, I think Bulldogs aren't as good as Swans, so I'm not sure they'll be able to control the ball as well as Swans, and I'm sure Sam Mitchell will be taking a look at that. I won't be too happy. I don't think that's like a massive trend of Hawks giving up massive amount of marks. I've just gone through the last 4 weeks, and they only did it one other week against Gold Coast. So, yeah, I think it's just a disparity.
Okay. Which they also got
just
smashed.
A disparity between strength of teams.
Yep. Well, we'll see. I still think there'll be a few marks available for Jack. I personally think he's could go close to averaging 100 for the rest of the year, but I think I'm more bullish than most. So that one's a real personal gut feel opinion one. Jordan Dawson at number 7 is also a really, really gut feel one. I I've probably got Jordan Dawson like when I've gone through. I've actually got him M10 averaging 112 for the rest of the year. That could be a little bit unders, but it could be a lot overs. It's really hard to read, to be honest, Jordan Dawson right now. And I wouldn't buy him. If you think he's kind of a little bit off the top 10 pace, but if you think he can average around 112 for the rest of the year, I think he's a really good buy. It's just like you're an owner. Tell me about him.
I've not enjoyed the ride, and I wouldn't be buying him. I know. So I guess let's paint the picture for those that didn't watch the game. Dawson was incredibly good early, and what they were doing was he was kind of playing forward or on the wing, and then he would be the fourth man to run in. And then, when their main mids, I guess, were off, he would come into the CBAs. So he had like 60% CBAs or something like that. He is one of the main mids, but they have like a very clear 4-person rotation. Saligo is too good at the moment to drop from that rotation. So he's in there, Crouch is in there, Laird is in there, and Dawson is obviously in there. And then they have Rankin or Rochelle or whoever else they want as a 5th person that gets rotated in. But it's a very clear 4-person rotation, which is very different than last year when Dawson was the number 1 CBA guy, averaging 80+% CBAs, and now he's like part of a team of people getting relatively fair split of CBAs. So there's already, I guess, less than last year. He's a confidence player, so his confidence right now is through the roof, and he looks really good, and his kicking is vastly improved. So he's still racking up the ball when he's not necessarily in the mid, which is great, and he's holding a lot of those marks that he was dropping earlier this year. So those are all positives. But again, it makes it really hard to keep up with your 115 average of last year if you're just not getting the CBAs and you're not as much, around the ball as you were last year. And then lastly, he was rested when the game was over. He was on 127 with 10 minutes to go, or 15 minutes to go or something. He was on the bench for an extraordinary length in that final quarter. And I was thinking about it, and I've seen that before. And that was actually in the preseason when they played, was it West Coast or whoever they played, and they beat up on. And then Dawson didn't play much in the last quarter. And I thought to myself, oh, it's just a preseason game, so they'd never do that in the real season. And now I'm thinking about it, and they have Crouch and they have Saligo, and these guys, they don't really care that much if they play them in the midfield and get them burned out. They're going to want to try and protect Dawson and Laird and let some of these other younger mids have a go in the midfield if the game is over. And they weren't doing that last year. I just think there's too many red flags on Dawson for me to buy. And there's a lot of good players in the league this year, midfielders that I think are going to go 115 plus. Petrarca is going to be 560 very soon, and Dawson's 558k. And I know who I would rather get. And then on top of that, there's players like Anderson who are breaking out into the next level, who are going to be a bit cheaper next round. And I would also, given the fixtures of Gold Coast and his CBA split, I'd be leaning that way. Amongst a variety of players you probably don't own, like the Zerets and the Dunkleys and those guys that people didn't really start with, who are all going to well outscore Dawson. I maybe if it was last week, 520k feels a lot better to stomach than 560. I just think that we're looking too much at a guy that was playing North Melbourne. I
think that's it. I think if he was playing any other team, he wouldn't have had that freedom, because he was racking up in the back half and then he was just running through the wing and then kicking goals. This week against Port's going to be a really good test. He does play well in showdowns, but I'm really keen to see what he can or can't do against Port, because that role wasn't great. I think it was 60% CBAs starting at half forward. It wasn't really what you want in a primo mid. So I've got him on my buy now list if you're a Jordan Dawson truther, but I'm not so sold. So that's why I'm paying up and going Sarong, because I don't really believe in Dawson.
No, I'm with you.
Yep. And then my last guy to buy now, I think you could still buy Nick Martin now. 579k, break even of 93. I've now got him as my 5th highest scoring defender for the rest of the year. I think he's cracked that D5 spot. So you could buy him. Like, he's not really a priority. I think he'll be available at this price plenty of other times throughout the year. But if you've got everyone else I've just mentioned and for some reason need to buy a defender, you could look at Nick Martin.
What were your thoughts on him being thrown forward for the last quarter of the game? I mean, he still racked it up. He had a 50-point quarter, but
yeah,
that's not good.
Nah, I'm not worried about that at all. That was literally just we've got a game on the line. And it wasn't even the whole quarter. It was probably like 10 minutes. And he got a goal and then assisted another goal. So it was probably 10 minutes out of the whole game. Like, we'll see if it happens again. But then they put him back to the half-back line and he racked it up in the last part of that quarter. So I think it was just a bit of a break grass, like a circuit breaker to kind of just get a bit of energy for 10 minutes, and then he went to the back line. So not worried about that at all at this stage. When Jordan Ridley comes back and the back line's fully healthy, it'll be interesting to see what they do, but I think probably Laverty just gets dropped and Martin's still there. So we'll see. Not a high priority trade in, but if you need him.
So I think the last one, because I know some people have been talking about it, Bailey Dale. He has...
You've been talking about
I already own him, so I'm not too worried. He has a break-even of -45. He's projected to go up 62k this week, so I think people might be looking at him as a potential, 100k play from this point. Is that something that you would recommend at this stage of the season?
I would have recommended it last week if you knew he was going to do what he did. I don't think Bailey Dale's a top 8 defender, so I don't think you want him in your final team. But kind of the same reason you bought him last week, he does have the last buy, which means you can ride him till then and then flip him for someone who's coming off the buy. If he makes 60k this week, then it probably does mean he's going to make 100k in a month. So I don't mind it. It's just kind of like you could make 100k from a rookie, though, and not have all that tied up.
Yeah. I mean, it's not without risk, right? Like, when I was buying Dale, I assumed Libba would come back and Richards, who has been playing as a CBA mid, would go back into the back line and be a main user of the ball, and Dale was going to be like maybe first or second fiddle. I didn't expect Libba to be out again, but when Libba was out, I was like, Dale's probably going to go pretty well now. It's just, that it was a play last week to make 100k, and we're 35k into that, and I know we play Hawthorn, and there's potential of Finmag tag, which would be terrible, and then Richmond is another soft fixture after that, but both have teams of players who could just, Pickett could very well just be sitting on Dale as well. So potential 2 tags. Yeah. I'd be staying very far away from Dale if I didn't already own him.
No, that's fair enough. So I've just talked about, the 8 guys, the 8 premiums or top liners I think we should trade in this week. Obviously, you're not going to be able to trade them all in. You probably own quite a few of them. You might do some this week, some next. But I just wanted to flag 4 guys as well that have high break-evens and are coming down, and you should probably put in your mental wish list, your shopping list for the next few weeks. Luke Ryan, break-even of 165. Yes. He'll be coming down. Tom Stewart, break-even of 138. He'll be coming down. He'll get down to about 500k. That could be a good... I still have him as a top 6 defender. Just.
Yeah.
I've got him as D6. I just think keep an eye on it.
Good value.
He's still got those spike games in him. Yeah. Zach Butters, break even of 154. He just put out a poor score, so he's going to come down in the next 2 weeks.
Don't jinx that, but yeah, I really want to buy him, and I'm scared he will put that out this week.
Well, he could do, especially if Rosie doesn't play and Butters is captain in the showdown.
That sounds like a 170 to me, but sure.
But no, he should come down and should be good buying. And then Christian Petrarca will be very, very good buying in a couple of weeks. He's put 2 stinkers out, 188 break even. He could get down to like well below 550 maybe. So let's see. So there are 4 players that I think you need to be starting to plan for. It's not this week. It's probably not even next week. But put them on your shopping list.
I've got 2 others for you, but it's more what do you do with them. Zorko and Jack Steele. What are your thoughts on both of those players?
Zorko, I did have, like, as a top 6 forward if he was playing defence, but he's not. Like, the magnets got shuffled a bit. He played all three. He played forward, mid, and defence last game in, like, fairly even splits even, and just scored putridly. So Zorko I probably would be trading. Like, he's an injury risk anyway. He's not far away from some sort of niggle, and now he doesn't look like he's going to reward you with the points. I'd probably cash out now while he's got money. I don't see him as a top 8 forward anymore, so he can go. Steele, I would probably still hold. Like, I know people are getting the jitters because he had his knee strapped and he didn't take any marks and he looked exactly like 2023 Jack Steele. I've seen a lot of those comments on Twitter. I don't know. I didn't own Jack Steele then. I don't own Jack Steele now, so I don't have the emotional attachment to that. I still think I've still got him as probably like around that M8, M9 areas, but if he is sore, it could be bad. What do you think with those two?
Zorko did get thrown back late in the game. I don't know if... I don't know what they're going to do with him. If it's not back, it's not worth keeping him. Just because his scoring just becomes so poor. And it would be kind of worth it if Brisbane were this dominant force of a team where they were kicking lots of goals and winning games, but they don't look like that, so probably can't do that. And on the other hand, Jack Steele is 600k. I'd be tempted to trade just because I have the emotional attachment of last year and just like holding him while he just becomes a pumpkin is not great, but he does have North Melbourne this week, so I feel like you can get away with holding him one more. I know his break-even's 190. I think he's got like a 130 plus average against them or something ridiculous in his last 3. So you might need to cop it and just wait 1 week and really see if he's struggling or not. Because if he's not, he's putting out a really big score, and if he's struggling, at least you'll get your answer. And he probably won't score too badly against North anyway. He might struggle to 100. And it's not the end of the world, but you'll know more information.
Yeah, and then there's some people who have, especially in Slack, been talking about, can we buy Zach Merritt and Matt Rao? I personally think they're too expensive, like 640 and 654k. They're amazing. They're both absolutely dominating. I've got them in kind of the top 6 mids, but surely they've got to get tagged 1 week or put out a stinker and get down to about 600k at some stage. And I just think there's better ways to spend your money this week. Like, talked about Tom Green and English and Bont being so much cheaper, and Sarong. I'd just buy them. What do you think about Merritt and Rao? It's hard not owning them.
Rao in particular, like, his season is ridiculous. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I guess if you're a non-owner, you know he's putting up big scores every week, but you're probably not realizing exactly like how big. I'm just going to read out his scores this season because it's kind of overwhelming. 137, 155, 99, 129, 135, 126, 136. I mean,
jeez,
they're absurd scores.
And he's been tagged in a few of those, but when he gets tagged, it just means there's someone closer.
Well,
for
the
him
last
to
2 games they've tagged Noah Anderson, which was really surprising. I mean, Noah Anderson's gone off the chain and he's got a massive ceiling, which is why I also like him. But just the Gold Coast fixtures for the rest of the year are absurdly easy. They really were blessed. And, you know, the tough team that they had to play this year is Brisbane, who look like a shell of themselves as well. So, they've really got such an amazing fixture. All of the mids are scoring really well, and I expect that to continue as well for the rest of the season. Look, Rao doesn't have that much of an outside game, but he's showing that he's averaging a stupid amount of contested. I think he's averaging 18 contested possessions a game, which is enough to sustain like a 115 average, pretty much, just from that contested ball winning, which most people, it's impossible to sustain that because that's like 18 contested possessions is like a really good game. And I'm like, no, I think Rao can do it because he's always been this inside bull.
He's just so good.
He also won 7 frees last week and had 9 clearances. and had 13 tackles. How are you going to score badly with 13 tackles?
Yeah, we just have to hope, I think, as non-owners that he does put out a couple of stinkers and come down. I think paying $650 for someone in the middle of upgrade season is just going to ruin your cadence for next week.
It is.
I think you'd rather just have that cash in the bank, like go Tom Green, have the 80K in the bank and use it
He had
next
12
week.
tackles a week before that. He's had 25 tackles in his last 2 weeks.
He's just a machine.
I mean, it's a game-breaking amount of tackles because it just raises your floor so high. Anyway, I say no one's body. I mean, how many ice baths is Raul taking every week? Like, his body must be so sore, just getting rammed the whole day. But anyway, yeah.
Take note of the ice baths, Jason Francis.
I don't think you can pay that much throughout the season unless they're going significantly more. You know, if they're putting 20 plus points on your M8, you know, maybe you have to pay up, and he actually is doing that. So I'm going to be leaving my last M8. I don't want to get the thing is, and something to think about. I mean, I've already done it because I have Dawson, but I don't want to get another weaker M8 just in case. Like, I want to get a Butters who I don't own because he's a gun and, you know, scoring incredibly well. And then I might get like a Petrarca. And then, you know, for me, that only really leaves like a Zach Merritt or a Raul that I'm missing. But I don't want to get like, you know, a Jack Steele type player, maybe even an Anderson I'm a bit scared of, or a Touk Miller, but just because they're not at that same scoring prowess as the top liners.
I think this is a really good discussion point, actually, because I actually see that there's 7 midfielders that are probably, I'm going to say, a tier above the rest. I'll go through them in a minute, but that means that you probably only want 1 or maybe 2 of these, I guess, slightly lesser guys, because you want to save the spots for the, I'm going to call them the big 7 right now. They might change as the season goes on, but I've got Bont, Sarong, Tom Green, Zach Butters, Zach Merritt, Matt Rao, and Christian Petrarca.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the order could change. The order could change as kind of the season goes on and who they're playing and whatnot. But I think there's 7 midfielders that you really, really want in your team by the end of the year if you can.
I already have 2 outside of those.
Which is actually one of the reasons I'm not too worried about trading Rosie, because I have Rosie and LDU who are both, I'm going to say, outside of that tier. So getting rid of one of them, kind of, because they're not in that tier, I'm kind of okay with it.
LDU
I guess
so fast.
Oh, he was actually going to go for me this week if Rosie wasn't injured. So that actually might be a little bit a good segue. I've kind of put together my best tiers, I guess, or my top 8 defenders, my top 10 mids, my top 4 rucks, my top 8 forwards. And it might just be good to just kind of go through them. These are they're just my opinion and who I'm projecting, but I think it could be a good discussion point of because I think it really gives you a good indication of who you should trade in. Because, like, you trading in Bailey Dale for a cash grab's one thing, that's pretty cool. But trading in Bailey Dale thinking he's a keeper, I think he's going to be giving way too many points to other people's D6 by the end of the year.
It's my D7.
Well, there you go. It could be your flick. But so if we go through defenders, I've probably got 4, like my top tier of defenders, there's 4 of them. So I've got Nick Dacos, Luke Ryan, Harry Sheasel, Dan Houston. Not necessarily in an order yet, but like they're kind of my top 4. Are you happy with those guys?
So I'm happy.
Sweet. And then I've got Nick Martin and Tom Stewart kind of in. Awesome. In that D5, D6. D7, D8, I think there's actually a real bunch of players that could come for this spot. At the moment, I've got Elliot Yeo and Lockie Whitfield. But literally last week it was Elliot Yeo and Hayden Young. So there's a few guys, McGovern, there's a few other guys there that even Sicily or Sinclair could come for it.
Dale.
So
I get it, yeah.
Well, maybe he could. Dale maybe could go like the 104 needed to be close.
But it is what it's fine.
So the way I see this is like I'm only trying to trade in the top tier at the moment, like the Dacos, Ryan, Houston, Sheasel, because I'm really confident they're a top 6. I'm trying to not to play in that D5, D6 spot at the moment because it could change, and you could, like Whitfield could do a few stinkers, go down to 500k, and then go on a hot run, and then you've just got an easy D6
Yeah, I
for
think
really
you got to
cheap.
still, you take the value where it presents, and hopefully you get to push someone to D7, and have that sort of swing cover between like the midfield and other lines, and be able to cover, half of your team or 2/3 of your team just with one premium. I think in an ideal world, you probably have that. In an ideal world, we might have Oliver at M9.
Well, we could. Last year I was really against that kind of, 23rd man,
23rd man.
being that swing, whereas I like instead, because I feel like it kind of compromised your cash or your.
It did last year. Yeah.
It compromised like the quality of your 22nd player. Like you kind of had 2 average guys filling out that last slot, whereas I think one of the reasons I was more successful because I just had 22 guns. So I'm wondering if I'm going to stick with that again this year, or if I will go 23.
Well, this year
anyway,
my team value is 500,000 more than it was this time last year, and this time last year I was also out of boosts, so it's not like a boost thing, and I was just outside the top 1k. So I think our cash gen this year has been wildly
it has
successful, and I think we
many good
and given
rookies.
the forwards as well are probably coming in a bit cheaper than previous years, just because they're not as good. I would be extremely surprised if not only did everyone have one premium on their bench to finish their year. I think the top teams will have a premium in like 2 or 3 premiums on the bench to finish the year. I mean, Jaden Short's going to come down to like 360k. And I think,
but also they come down to that price for a reason because they're not going very well.
If I'm looking at him I won't because I've got Dale and they share the same buy. But if you're looking for a D7 and you're shopping around the 360k mark, I think someone like Jaden Short with his history is like a fine selection. You just need to see a good game out of him and that you're set. Same as Oliver. As soon as Oliver puts out a ton, I would be potentially buying him the next round.
We'll be looking at him.
That could be this week.
Yep, it could. All right, so then in our midfielders, as I said, there's that tier above, and I've actually got 7 of them in there. Bont, Sarong, Green, Butters, Merritt, Rao, Petrarca. They're actually the ones I think people should be buying now. Me personally, I'm not really sure you should be shopping in the Jordan Dawson kind of range, even Noah Anderson, just because I think you want all 7 of those guys and you want to save spots for them. At the moment, I've got Jack Steele, Josh Dunkley, Jordan Dawson as like M8,
Jack
9,
Steele.
10, but there's about 15 players in there that could like take that M8 spot, honestly.
Yeah.
There's so many that are kind of, I don't think they're quite pushing that 115 like these other guys I've mentioned, but they're probably like between 110 and 115.
Yeah. Don't forget Libba.
Yep. Yeah, he's in the mix. I'm not putting him in the top tier.
Fair enough. I like that.
My rucks, I've got a big tier. Max Gawn and Tim English, I think they're well ahead of
I can't
anyone
see Mick
else.
there.
Well, he does have a good run. He might make his way up there. I think everyone wants Gawn and English by the end of the year. I think that's pretty clear now. I still think Rowan Marshall will become the 3rd best ruck and get a good stretch together, especially after his buys. He plays 8 of his last 9 at Marvel against some good opposition. I think he's going to charge home strong if he gets healthy, but just don't even look at him right now. You want Gawn and English. I've kind of had to fill out R4. I think Sean Darcy actually is going to have a good year. He could be our R4, but you wouldn't look at him. You want Max and English. Then forwards, I think Heaney and Flanders are in a tier of their own. Like Heaney probably actually a top tier and then Flanders one below. But I'm pretty comfortable with our F1, F2.
Yeah, that one's easy.
I've actually got Jack McRae at F3 because I'm a believer in Jack McRae, as I said. I still think he goes probably 100 or close to from here on out. I know there's a lot of people that don't think that way, so that's totally fair. But that's where I'm sitting. Your thoughts on Jack McRae aren't
Not strong.
as
I think
boyish?
he could be top 6. I just I'm not super. There's like, for me, I've got Heaney and Flanders and then Bolton, and I'm like pretty comfortable with that. And then the next like 6 players, they're just all in a big mush. That all could go anywhere between like 90s,
absolutely.
90s to like 80s, and you don't quite know what you're going to get.
Yep. Well, I've got Bolton as the next one at F4, so I also agree that he's a top 6. At the moment, I've got Luke Jackson in there. That could, we just need to see more of him with Darcy. Even with Darcy, he averaged okay enough last year, but we'll see. I've actually got Harley Reid at F6, and this isn't fully my idea. I've been listening to a bit of Selby. Selby came up with this idea first. He asked, out of all the players that aren't, top 6, who do you think's breaking in? And weeks ago, he called Harley Reid as a top 6, and I thought that was a bit blasphemous, but I'm seeing what he's seeing now. Like just the inside game, the tackling, the contested possessions. He might not be. Harley Reid might drop off, but at the moment, I would not be trading him. I think he could be close enough to a top 6 forward to keep.
That.
Any thoughts on Harley?
He's already been rested, right? So unless he's my F7, which is possible, I mean, look, I'd love to get Jackson as F7 so he can cover the ruck. I think that's what we should be aiming for.
Yep.
So maybe him at F6 and Jackson F7 and kind of that sort of rotation sounds decent to me. That's kind of what I'm teeing up, we'll say. But I don't think by himself F6. I think he'd be rested in total points. It's a no-go for me.
No, and he's still a rookie, and he could put out a 50 or something every now and then, whereas I don't really see Flanders putting out a 50. Then, like you said, my F7 and F8, I think there's a whole bunch of people that are not great, but maybe we'll have in our teams. Like, I don't have Rankin on my list, but he could be there. Fife could be there. Dylan Moore could be there. There's even more, like even some of the key forwards like Mackay.
Kerno.
At the moment, I'll give the nod to Fife and Moore because they've had a couple of good weeks, and we thought Dylan Moore was going to be a top 6 forward at the start of the year before he got glandular fever, and he's showing kind of why in these last 2 weeks. So I'll give him a little nod at F8, but with no confidence. Some of the questions we had, especially after Fife's really big game on the weekend, should Fife non-owners be trading him in? What do you think about that?
I'm a non-owner of Fife.
Me too.
I haven't considered it. No, I don't think I would. The risk of body breakdown feels a lot better to take when he's 290k than when it's 420k. I mean, if we were scared of the body breaking of Yo at like 450, I mean, this is in that territory and without the same preseason that Yo had. And it's not like he's doing Yo numbers where Yo's going like 110 or something crazy. Well, it's 117 he's going. Fife's going 90, so let's calm down a little. I should have Skodfathered.
And I think
that.
Fife's
Shout out to Skodfather. I've butchered that
just
without even realizing. I wouldn't be trading him at 420. It obviously sucks to miss a big score that he had last week. But yeah, it's the point chasing, I think, at this point.
Yeah, and I think Fife's every chance to be vested again, like especially if they're winning by a fair bit, like it happened earlier in the year. I think it could happen again, just to conserve him. So if I need like an F6 towards the buys and like he does have that good buy, maybe I just buy him to like finish my team kind of thing. But
I will say, because I feel like, I don't know why, but I feel like I need to defend my Rankin pick because I'm actually really high on Rankin. I think the thing that I like or identified early is his time on ground this year is through the roof. Like it's in the 90%. He's pretty much playing like 110 minutes per game. So his points per minute only needs to be like 0.8 or so for him to be kind of a top liner. And the one game that he scored poorly against Fremantle in round 3, he had 98 minutes, which is significantly his worst. He's pretty much always above the 110 mark. So he just had 12 minutes less, which isn't good. But every other game except that one has been 81 plus, which when we're talking about consistency for a forward, 97, 81, 68, 88, 121, 85, 113. You're going to get highs and you're going to get lows, but I feel like his floor has been raised because his time on ground's been really good and he's been getting CBAs. I know he just dropped off from like mid 50s or mid 60s CBAs to like 20. But the reason...
Yeah, is that 20?
No, I mean, the reason it got dropped was because he kicked 2 goals in the first 10 minutes and they were like, he probably should play forward today. He's on. And, when he was an effective forward, he kicks goals. And when he's not an effective forward, they throw him in the middle to try and get him into the game. So I think he has like lots of different ways to score. And as a forward where we don't have high expectations, I mean, realistically for him to go top 6, he probably needs to just average around 90-ish. And he's not, I wouldn't buy him now because he's $4.93, which is a bit too expensive for 90-ish. But when I bought him at $4.50, that felt like better value. And he's pretty much got Port Adelaide this week, which I consider a tough fixture. And then he's got a run of like 5 or 6 in a row of like really good games as well. So, that was kind of what my thinking was at when I got Rankin. I just saw the value and thought this is a good way to also fill out my forward line and get a worse rookie off the field. And that's kind of why I head in that direction. I know some people might think it's random, but there's at least some logic behind it.
I think there's plenty of merit in it, especially the getting a forward rookie off the field because the forward rookies have been unpredictable this year. I did see that he needed 4 goals to only get 113 last week is a bit of a concern, but 113 from a forward's amazing. So, like you said, maybe if he wasn't kicking goals, that he would have been in the midfield. So
Texas handing off.
Poo-poo it at all.
Texas just like handing off goals.
That was insane. It was like he was trying to get the goal assist record or something. There were so many easy shots.
He's pretty much doing it. Tex is like a really unselfish forward. He hands off goals all the time, and it's good when you're ranking. So that certainly helps. And with the fixture run coming up, they've played a lot of hard teams and they still scored well. So I think at parity in price last week, I probably would have gone Rankin over McRae. But that's not for everyone.
Fair enough. I'm McRae over Rankin, but that's totally fine. That's kind of, we're getting to the end of it. There's some podcast questions we could go through, but we have covered a lot of them throughout this. We've kind of weaved them in there, but one that stood out is Darcy Parish back.
No, God.
Should have asked Cheezo.
Look, he's just not getting the midfield time. It's as simple as that. I mean, Stringer randomly got like 70 plus CBAs and dominated. He was so good. Collingwood had no answers to stop him. And then you've also still got Caldwell, who got pushed out, who's been in amazing form, and Zerrett, Setterfield, Durham. Like, there's just way too many mids running through there. It's one of the reasons I'm still not 100% all in on Merritt. There's just too many good enough. I shouldn't say good, but good enough mids at Essendon.
Elite mids.
That are going through that. I don't think I can pay up for Parish.
Setterfield's injured, Shield's injured. They could come back in. There's still like Hobbs and Sardis as well. And there was a medal on the line, so of course Darcy Parish is going to be elite. But yeah, I'm personally, like you just mentioned Merritt, I'm not worried about Merritt at all. I'm so confident he's a top 7 mid and like averages probably like 117 or something. Like, he's the number 1 guy. I don't think he's going anywhere. But yeah, no, Darcy Parish is not back unless maybe in a couple of weeks when he gets the Dreamtime medal on the line, you could just bring him in for 1 week. We answered, is a triple downgrade an option this week? We said no because you want to keep your upgrade cadence going. Someone's asking about dead bench rookie slots. They're saying they might have Livingston and Sexton dead in the forward line and Hoare and Reid dead in defence. Should you, even though these guys haven't made much money, should you be kind of fixing that so you've at least got one emergency on every line? Or are you just kind of holding and praying?
I think this year with the cash gen, you probably get away with it. I mean, as soon as Sweet's ready to go, you're swinging Livingston back into that ruck line and getting another player on field, probably a playing forward. If you're that concerned, I would be planning out your next couple of trades and seeing how you're going cash gen wise. But with the amount of good rookies we've got this year, I think you could probably get away with leaving some of those dead rookies and fixing them closer to the bye. I mean, worst case scenario here, you spend a boost to do a sideways to Rogers or Garcia, and they get dropped before the bye. If I'm going to be sidewaysing non-playing rookies, let it be during the buys at least, and get some guys that can make it through there. And so I've got a couple extra playing scores. I don't think you need to do it right now.
It'd be a bit of a nervous wait having two lines with no cover for a late out or something. But yeah, there's not much point, I guess, getting rid of someone, especially if they're only like 150k, like a Jai Clark, and haven't made you money.
Yep.
Yeah, kind of wasting a trade a little bit. It would be a nervous time. Absolutely. There. And then last couple, if people are boosting, do you have a preference whether they go double down and one primo in, or one rookie down and bring in two primos? I guess it kind of depends. For me, it's kind of like what rookies you got last week. Like if you already got Sweet, then you don't need to get him, kind of thing. What do you think about that?
Sweet's a must-have anyway.
Are the rookies that good?
Look, I would double down if I was boosting and one up, because I think the rookies are probably that good. And then next week, if you have another boost available, you could do your 2 up, 1 down. I think Rogers' job security is good enough that that's worth doing. Could be misreading it, but he seems the real deal.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think I'd double down to get those two if you don't have them, and 1 up. If you've already gone early on Sweet, like a lot of people did, you could quite comfortably just get Rogers and then 2 up. That's exactly what I'm doing. So that's an option. That's kind of most of our podcast questions, although Tom has asked us to rank these pig-related culinary experiences, and you're not going to participate in this?
I refuse.
All right, Tom wants to know my pig-related culinary experiences. And these top 4, he's given me 4 options, and as I was reading them, I was like, geez, they're all so good. How can I rank them? So he wants me to rank a crispy pork banh mi for lunch, a bacon and egg roll to fix a Saturday morning hangover, a roast pork and veg with gravy for Sunday lunch, or a pulled pork Dorito anytime the mood strikes. And this is so hard, Tom. I think you can't beat a crispy pork banh mi for lunch on a Wednesday. We've got a Wednesday banh mi's in Slack where we all send each other photos of our banh mi's. I'm just a banh mi fiend, especially pork and crackle. I'm going to give that number 1. I'm going to give number 2 to the bacon and egg roll to fix a hangover. The bacon egg rolls are interesting though, because if the egg's not runny, like throw it out. I don't want kind of dry egg with not enough sauce. It's this one specific. I've got to have like a really good bacon egg roll with a runny egg and good sauce. Number 3, I'm going to go for the roast pork and veggie with gravy. I just love that. I especially make a really good roast pork. I've got an incredible crackling technique, as every good pig should have. And number 4 on the list, I'm going to go for a pulled pork burrito, which that's a bit of an in-joke with Slack. They might actually be quite surprised that the burrito is number 4 on my list, given how much I've talked about them. But I just love the other 3 so much better. All 4 pig. I think pig is just such a good thing to eat. So all 4 are great.
Right, well, thank you for that very thorough breakdown. I must request, Tom G, no more pig-related questions for the podcast. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And we have spent enough time in this podcast, so we didn't need to add that. But it's just such a good question.
Look, it's we're coming up on the 2-hour mark, and I'm sure people getting it this far were desperate to know the answer. So thanks Tom for that one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, that's just about us done for it. Like we said, Pistol and I are in the peloton, hovering around the 12K mark, and we're going to come out swinging this week. We're bringing a heap of primos back in. You're bringing Stuart and Libber off the bench, and probably another up, and Tom Green in. So you're bringing 3 primos that you didn't have last week. I'm bringing Stuart off the bench, and then bringing Sarong and Bont in. So we're both bringing in 3 big hitters, and we're going to break away from this peloton, and we're going to chase down JB and Chizo pretty soon.
So
I'm feeling it.
I'm looking forward to it. That's going to be. We've got like a little partnership rivalry brewing. Us 2 versus them.
Yeah.
2. We've started slowly, but I think we're on their tails.
I'm imagining us on tandem bikes. We're in the tandem peloton, and they're at the front, and they're.
We got it. We got this, pig. We're going to do it.
Pedal harder, Pistol.
Actually, you're behind me. You pedal harder.
Okay.
Excellent. All right.
By 8 points. I'm 8 points behind you.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Pig, for joining and answering some of those questions. I feel like it is quite a critical week this week. There's lots of different trade options, lots of potential injuries and things to fix. If you have any questions throughout the week, don't forget you can find JB at JB_DRSC. Go to him first. You can find Pig at Pig_DRSC. I forgot my own, Pistol_DRSC, and Chizo with a Z _DRSC. Otherwise, thanks everybody for listening, and hope you have a great rest of your week.